Hello. I want to talk about this city character, Arthur Foley Winnington-Ingram. The name sounds like a character out of P.G. Wodehouse, and I first came across him when researching for a walk in 2014 to tie in with the centenary of the outbreak of the First World War. He was one of the longest-serving bishops of London from 1901 to 1939, and he's buried in St. Paul's Cathedral. However, he does not lie peacefully, for he was in his time and later, especially with the commemorations of the last few years surrounding the Great War, a figure of controversy, prompting condemnation and admiration in equal measure. He was destined for the church, his father a rector, his mother the daughter of a bishop. He developed strong moral and social beliefs which were reflected in his ministry in the East End at Oxford House and as Bishop of Stepney. And he also possessed great oratorical gifts, the source of his later reputation. In the pre-war period, Winnington-Ingram would be seen as a puritanical progressive in many respects. His targets were the twin evils of drink and lust. These were the concerns which consumed many radicals at the time. Temperance was seen as a route to social improvement and the eradication of poverty for many, especially women who bore the brunt of widespread alcoholic excess. Coincidentally, Christabel Pankhurst's slogan from 1912 was "Vote for Women and Chastity for Men," common ground between the suffragettes and the bishop. It was, however, the outbreak of war in the summer of 1914 that would provide him with a third great cause, namely the defeat of Germany. In his first sermon, following the outbreak of the war, the Puritanism of his earlier campaigns were reflected in his expression of muscular Christianity. Had there not crept a softness over the nation, a passion for amusement, a love of luxury, and of mere physical comfort? Not such was a nation which made the empire and which curbed the armada. For Winnington-Ingram, the war was a war for purity, a holy war. Our soldiers died, were martyrs. As late as 1917, he was claiming this nation has never done a more Christ-like thing than when it went to war in 1914. The world had been redeemed again by the precious blood on the side of the righteous. Such talk prompted a canon of St. Paul's, Scott Holland, to argue that the bishop was asking clergy to be, quote, mad mullahs preaching a jihad, unquote. It was, however, at Westminster Abbey in late November 1915 that saw him deliver his most devastating sermon, and the one which has continued to dog his reputation. The war, he said, was a great crusade to kill Germans, to kill them not for the sake of killing, but to save the world, to kill the young men as well as the old, and to kill them lest the civilization of the world be killed. This has been described as the most infamous sermon in Anglican history and the most inflammatory sermon of the entire war. The Prime Minister, Herbert Asquith, commented that such bellicose oratory was, quote, jingoism of the shallowest kind, unquote. And the Dean of St. Paul's privately talked of it as, quote, a most unchristian sermon, unquote. Winnington-Ingram didn't just confine himself to the public. As the chaplain to the London Rifle Brigade and the London Naval Volunteers, he visited the troops on both the Western Front and Salonika, as well as visiting the Grand Fleet at Rosyth and Scapa Flow. He presided over drumheads here on the steps of St. Paul's. He turned Fulham Palace into a hospital for the war casualties. Such was his charismatic qualities as an orator that it was claimed he added 10,000 men at one recruiting meeting that he addressed. To leave an impression of Winnington-Ingram as simply a xenophobic warmonger would be unfair. There were numerous instances of him appealing for prayers for the German people. He was especially compassionate when it came to children. In that first sermon in August 1914, quoted earlier, he referred to the 25 German schoolboys who were singing in my garden 3 weeks earlier. They were still the same boys today. In 1917, at the funeral of the 16 children killed in the first daylight Gotha raid in June of that year, he said that he did not believe that the mourners would want 16 German children killed in revenge. This was consistent with his views opposing reprisals and for his call to uphold the Hague Convention, namely to look after wounded enemies, never fire on a white flag, never put mines in neutral waters, and never place machine guns in ambulances. So the bishop was a complex, paradoxical man. Why is worth remembering is that his wartime career captures the moral dilemmas and predicament that war raises for clergy, especially those who are members of an established church. For every British clergyman claiming that God is with us, there was a German pastor declaring Gott mit uns.